One of the reasons why I no longer upload YouTube videos is because I'm so addicted to just watch my TikTok feed and procrastinating. But luckily, TikTok is actually really great for finding new and inspiring music, even though 50% of it is cringy funk remixes and some rapper I'm pretty sure isn't even real. But every once in a while you find something that will change your music taste for the rest of the year. And for me, Pinkpantheress was just that. Now, of course, this isn't my first rodeo with drum and bass. I'm a kid of the 90s. I probably have 100 hours of playtime in Need for Speed Most Wanted, as well as the occasional dip into Midnight Club, Wipeout, the Ratchet & Clank series. I watched the Powerpuff Girls, played Gran Turismo, as well as the Ducati World Racing Challenge, whose main theme is basically a low-quality DnB loop run through a calculator. It's a kind of music that for us 90s kids almost didn't exist in real life. It was only accessible through pausing a game, starting an episode, or choosing a stage. Kinda like a digital elevator music. But for the last handful of years, I've associated DnB with flavorless, mass-produced club music. I'm sorry if you feel offended, but this YouTube library sounding as Monster Cat music just feels so flat and uninteresting to me. Like it's randomly generated by putting a bunch of parameters into an AI and you get one of these incredibly sterile songs coming out. Doing research for this video, I've discovered that liquid DnB is probably the worst genre of music ever, for me personally, that is. To this new Pinkpantheress DnB, there's texture. The vocal is clearly coming from a person, it has emotion. The lyrics are relatable instead of being some produced to death auto-generated nonsense about my heartbeat dancing to the beat. To me, that's what separates it from the more modern DnB. I'm almost tempted to make a case of calling it a new genre, like bedroom DnB, DIY garage or something. It's uniquely feminine compared to most of mainstream DnB, taking more inspiration from the early 2000s style of the genre instead of the DnB that is popular today. It's basically the interpretation of early Y2K DnB by the kids who were too young for it during that era. For a long time, the drum and bass production standard has been insanely high. I think we're finding an inverse situation where a new generation has come through and they're like, I don't care about the mixdowns, I'm listening to this through earbuds. Especially in the last 2 years when they don't even have to think about club reactions at all. Those really rough, energetic, scratchy breaks have come back in a big way. If you put incredibly well produced sub bass on a track, it'll be lost completely on people watching TikTok on their phones. Maybe it's just my taste. Maybe I'm in the minority when I say I prefer faulty, weird and amateur productions over perfect sounding, mass-produced pop hits. I mean, it's good work. Lewis Capaldi has a good voice, Bruno Mars is an extremely talented musician, Drake has some catchy lyrics, I think. But none of that brings out more emotion for me than when Echo 2K sings about his drug abuse and self-image on Sugar and Diesel, or the whole E album for that sense, or the hardest song of all time, JPEG Mafia's Hustle Duty Pay, or even the raw emotion on the deleted Doja Cat song, For Morant, all of which are some of my most played songs of 2022. A hyper-realistic painting of a person is extremely impressive and requires a lot of talent, technical skill and sleepless nights. But a Francis Bacon painting might grab your eye more as an interesting and fascinating piece. We like to see flawed characters on screen in order to relate to them and believe they are real, not caricatures. Too perfect, unrealistic. Maybe there can be similar emotions about music. And in a field full of too perfect production, Pinkpantheress has managed to create something fresh. Pinkpantheress started her career by releasing small snippets of homemade loops on her TikTok account in late 2020 and turning them into actual songs in early 2021. Her style of music takes inspiration from the mid-90s, early 2000s DnB and UK garage scene, but putting a female R&B lead vocal on top. Her song Just a Waste became the first to gain some attention on the platform around Christmas 2020. I can't play any of it, unfortunately, out of fear of angering the Michael Jackson estate, which has eviscerated the song from all streaming platforms. But you can still find it on YouTube and various places if you know where to look. This retro Jackson bop was soon followed by singles Pain, Attracted to You and Break It Off in the early months of 2021 until she was signed to Parlophone Records in April of the same year. She credits a lot of her rise to fame due to TikTok having a majority of US Gen Z users that the UK garage vibe felt new and fresh to. Pinkpantheress may not have single-handedly brought this new D&B style into the mainstream, but she's brought new attention to the genre through her clever marketing, and I would call her a kind of rising tide that lifts all boats. While making some waves on TikTok throughout the year, it wasn't until mid-2021 that things really blew up. I would argue that there were 4 big catalysts for this D&B resurgence. First of all, Pinkpantheress herself. She was the first one to bring back the nostalgic D&B to the masses and market it well. She consistently released singles throughout 2021 and eventually a debut mixtape in October, becoming the soundtrack of the year for most TikTok consumers around the world, as well as becoming BBC's Sound of 2022 in January of 2022. Due to being a fresh new artist who rose in popularity right after their first song, she didn't really have a backlog for fans to listen to if they wanted to hear more of the same style. As of mid-2021, she only had 5 or 6 songs on her Spotify page and all around 2 minutes long, a reason for fans to seek out similar artists. Around mid-2021 to early 2022, the song Moment by MacLeod and Help Yourself by Ezekiel really started taking off and become a menace on TikTok. Even though they are kind of more of breakcore songs, but let's get back to that in a minute. Spotify made the Planet Rave playlist around July of 2021, which became one of the fastest growing playlists on the platform and mostly consisted of a mix of hyperpop, breakcore and this newly discovered reimagining of rave and drum and bass. You also had an upswing in YouTube videos called Ambient Jungle Mix, Low Poly Breaks, Intelligent Drum and Bass Gaming Mix during this period, though mostly rooted in the nostalgia of almost ambient D&B from old Y2K video game soundtracks. Around mid-2022, Eliza Rose and Interplanetary Criminal released Boda, Baddest of Them All, which became another viral hit, implementing UK garage and 90s dance stylistic choices, dominating the summer dance floors. All of this combining to become a new resurgence of drum and bass and jungle. If you want to just call this style D&B, then it quickly can be named some of the most played D&B of all time. That title usually goes to songs like Sigma's Nobody to Love, Wilkinson's Afterglow, or Rudimental's Waiting All Night. Pinkpantheress' Pain has at least 270 million plays, and Break It Off has 168 on Spotify. MacLeod's Moment, 237 million, and these songs have only been out for a couple of years. It's getting critical acclaim as well. Pinkpantheress got Best Female Act at the MOBO Awards in 2022 and the BBC Sound of 2022 award, while Nia Archives got an NME award for Best Producer and a MOBO award for Best Dance/Electronic Act the same year. The genre or movement mostly pulls from bedroom pop, D&B and UK garage, which makes sense as it has huge UK roots. Willow Kane, Piri and Tommy, Nia Archives, Eliza Rose, Yoon Pinku, Venby and Pinkpantheress plus more are all from the island of no dentists and the birth of pop music. In contrast to the D&B you are used to hearing, the mix here is a bit rougher, hence the bedroom DIY aspect. The drums, for example, are mostly sampled old drum breaks instead of being made on a digital drum machine or synthesizer. The old drum loops give a feeling of being authentic and organic compared to the digital and processed drums of modern electronic music. The laid-back vocals take more of the center stage of the melody, similar to a pop song with simple effects such as echoing and delay, as well as ad-libs like Pinkpantheress' famous Hey. This focus on the vocal performance and melody has led many to label it a style of liquid D&B. Among the jungle and D&B scene influences, I also suspect that this Femrave bedroom D&B is especially inspired by what I would call borderline hyperpop, experimental pop associated acts. People like Sassy009, Earth Eater, Sega Bodega, Negi Jemmy, Namasenda, Echo 2K, Cuckoo and Claire Claire, Muramasa, Kashmir Cat, Kelela, Grimes, and Shy Girl. While hyperpop drew inspiration from the mainstream pop of the Y2K era, this rave genre stuck with the sound from the clubs and house parties of that same period. I think there is a point to be made about how we kinda joked a while back about how artists were drawing inspiration from the early Y2K era, but now we are seeing it actually coming back full force. How artists like Pinkpantheress, Flow and Bia Badoobie are presenting themselves right now, both sonically and visually. How Bia has brought back what I would call American Pie music, the Blink 182, Jimmy Eat World, Avril Lavigne sound. You know, the music that plays when our main character arrives at their college, looks around on the field, the grass in front of the school and observes the different groups of people trying to find a new boy to crush on. While someone like Flo has taken a more Destiny's Child, Sugar Babes R&B inspiration, although still from the same era. But that's a video for another time. For now, let's get back into... I mentioned earlier how Moment by MacLeod rose to extreme fame during 2021, but it wasn't quite belonging into the Pinkpantheress style of music. It's in fact more of a breakcore tune. Breakcore is what you get when you combine drum and bass with nightcore. A nosy, chaotic track, often with samples from anime and movies, layered with overwhelming broken drum patterns that can silence the voices. It's extremely fast-paced and translates speed in a uniquely strong way, transporting you to the realms of racing games like Wipeout, Need for Speed or Ridge Racer. Breakcore looked kinda different in the beginnings, originating in the late 90s by artists like Venetian Snares, Aphex Twin, Alec Empire and its label Digital Hardcore Recordings, spawning out of the hardcore electronic music genre. While the online anime style that has become popular in recent years is mostly the result of Machine Girl, Suruslet and Gorshit's influence on the genre. It's kinda interesting, because while the style of DMB we covered earlier has ties to hyperpop, you could definitely argue that the modern breakcore that's popular today has ties to the glitchy hyperpop rap, such as acts like Glaive, Eric Doa, Black Winter Wells, Sebi, Curtains, Pitfall, Ezekiel and others, making the border between glitchcore and breakcore closer and closer, both in terms of music and aesthetically. In a digital age where we have endless feeds on every platform and our attention seems to be fading as we watch a clip from a podcast side by side with a clip of Sandbean Cat and MLG level Subway Surfers gameplay, I think that breakcore does feed that need for sensory overload that especially young and extremely online people today have a high tolerance for. There's so much going on that you don't need anything besides the music to feel satisfied. And in a way, it has replaced lo-fi beats to study and relax to, now it's become breakcore beats to lose consciousness to. Some of the artists pushing the genre forward today are Tokyo Pill, Surslat, Gorshit, Turcos Death, Nedaj, Blacksmith and Opticore among others. Now, it wouldn't be a Pinkest video without a three-way Venn diagram, so I've found a way to force one into this video as well. I've chosen to compare breakcore and the vaporwave aesthetics as they are both annoying people music. Add in some Y2K aesthetics to round it all out with the way artists like Pinkpantheress, Piri and Tommy, Flow and Bia Badoobie are presenting themselves right now. Similarly to Y2K, breakcore aesthetic has taken inspiration from the same time period, only a bit later in the 2000s. While the main Y2K look has a more bright and bubbly feel to it, breakcore tends to be more dark, muted colors, technical and glitchy in its appearance, bordering into grunge. A lot of breakcore releases tend to look like covers or manuals for PS2 era games. Think Jet Set Radio meets Midnight Club. There are a lot of wipeout fonts, old 3D characters and car models. Similarly to Vaporwave, the breakcore aesthetic is also inspired by anime and Japanese culture. There's even a dedicated breakcore subgenre that heavily samples from anime shows and clips. But breakcore also draws influence from Japanese Y2K fashion photography and streetcar culture, while channeling that feeling of a late night vibe. Chaotic and glitchy images are also common for the genre, pairing well with the vibe of the songs. There is a certain old found footage media aesthetic to a lot of releases, similar to the late night lo-fi part of Vaporwave. If I were to put Pinkpantheress on the flawless map I made here, she would probably fit right here. Mainly in the Y2K bubble, but with a foot in the darker breakcore grunge aesthetic. In her music video for Just For Me, she perfectly captures the Y2K emo pop vibe, even having stuff like flip phones and a low quality video format. Now, it's been a minute since I started writing this script, and since then Pinkpantheress has taken steps towards more mainstream pop and has gotten insane success with Boys the Liar Part 2 feat Ice Spice. Piri and Tommy have broken up, Skrillex is flirting with the genre, so I guess we'll see what the future brings. If you are hungry for more of this kind of music, I have a few suggestions. Of course, the Planet Rave playlist we've already mentioned, which is a good starting point for all of the stuff I've covered in this video. Other than that, we have one called Newwave, made by Piri of Piri and Tommy, and my very own Y2K Femrave list, which is a bit of everything, but mainly the Pinkpantheress, Shy Girl, Piri vibes with some breakcore. And a purist breakcore list made by the artist Tokyo Pill and some of their friends called Breakcore Heaven. I've listed my sources in the comments there along with the playlists. There are tons of articles and documentaries to indulge in if you want to fall deeper into the rabbit hole. Please be civil in the comments, and I will see you again when I found a new music genre to take over my personality.